the initiative to start this, and I also congratulate them for beginning this program. Apart from this, I would also like to welcome my colleagues from different departments. We have students and my friends from different colleges of Belagavi district. So I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you. And again, once again, I would like to thank Vijayalakshmi ma'am for speaking to us students, and we expect. I think we'll have a great lecture from you, ma'am. So thank you so much. Over to you, Dipti. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for setting the tone for the program. Let me now invite Ms. Rishti Patil from BA 3rd SEM to introduce our esteemed resource person, Ms. Vijay Lakshmi.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are privileged to welcome Professor Vijayalakshmi Danaraddi, an exceptional academician, writer, and motivational speaker who has dedicated over 15 years teaching and mentoring students, currently serving as Associate Professor in the Department of Studies in English of the Government First Grade College, CSP. Professor Dhanredi significantly contributed to academician, literary, and domains. Over the years, Professor Dhanredi has mentored a countless students as a ranger leader, has guided 13 students to achieve the prestigious Rajya Puraskara Award. Man has organized many seminars and workshops. Many her workshops and seminars focus on the communication skills, personality development, and empowerment women. A prolific Kannada writer, has authored novels which Arivu and the short story collection like Nora and Stories. She also actively contributed to Kannada poetry within the works, being featured in a prominent newspaper like Lokadwani and Sayukta Karnataka. As the Honorary General Secretary of Dharwad Katte, she has organized over 236 special talks on literature now available on the Dharwad Katte YouTube channel. This initiative has fostered literary dialogues across the Karnataka. Professor Dhanredi is deeply committed to a societal betterment. She has delivered motivational talks on our school children, taught English to our children with hearing and speech, regularly participated in the blood donation drives in the support needy. Let us welcome this remarkable individual whose multifaceted achievements continue to inspire students, educators, and the writers alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Srishti, for setting the tone for the program and giving us an excellent introduction of our guest speaker. Now it's my privilege to invite our respected principal, Dr. B.S. Kamble sir, to deliver the presidential remarks and share his vision for today's program. The platform is yours. Sir, I would like to invite Dr. Prashant Kamble sir to deliver the presidential remarks.
Diti, Kamla sir is a little busy, so we have Kamla sir at the end of the function, so we can directly proceed to Dhanredi madam.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. It's now time to begin our first session of the day titled Exploring Literature and Comprehension Techniques. Our guest speaker, Professor Vijayalakshmi Danaraddi, will take us through key aspects of understanding literature, employing close reading techniques, developing comprehension strategies, and mastering annotation and note taking skills. I would like to call Ms. Vijayalakshmi, ma'am, to share their ideas. We are eager to hear you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you. Am I audible to you people?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Very good afternoon to all. First and foremost, I'm very thankful to IG Mullah sir, who is the head of the department, and Dr. BS Kamble sir, who is the principal of the college, and Krishna sir. Because of him, I'm here today, and I got the opportunity to talk to you people. And it's quite challenging job because when Krishna sir spoke to me on Monday and he asked me to deliver talk on enhancing literary skills as well as digital literacy, the use of IT, AI, artificial intelligence. And first of all, myself is not well equipped with the AI tools, that is digital tools. What the knowledge I have, I try my level best to extend that knowledge to all the students who are here. And he also told me that regarding the who are the listeners here, and first year optional English students are so there, and second year optional English, and final years. So for all these students and first years, those who are having a lot of curiosity regarding to know more and more about the literature and what the significance of it and everything, and second years already entered, and final years already, they got almost the basic idea about it, and they got ready to build their career in this particular area. So why I told it is a very challenging, because the dish what I have to prepare for the first year is quite different, and the second year what they the dish they expect is quite different, and the final years are having some different expectations. And addressing all these students in a single platform, I try my level best what all the ingredients I have. I try to cook well and feed you all. And if it is very tasty, I whatever the efforts I did, and definitely it will be fruitful. Otherwise, you it is your fate, and you have to digest it somehow. With these words, I directly get into the topic, that is, the enhancing literary skills. So, very first thing, we should have some clarity regarding what is literature, why we want to study this. You know, as a student of literature, and especially the optional English students. So, when I go back to the days of mine when I was pursuing my degree, and when this question has been raised to me, and I used to answer that. My teacher taught us that, or they informed us that, if we have select one of the optional subjects as optional English, and there'll be multiple options for us, and multiple opportunities, the doors will be open more for us in case of the career building. So probably most of the students, especially the students who come from the rural background, having the same kind of. I'm not talking that all the students have these kind of mindset, but most of the students, because after PU, we are not having lot of knowledge regarding our career development and everything. What the teachers suggest us, and we go accordingly. And most of the time what happened, and we selected one of the subjects as optional English, because it helps us to our career building, and we have lot of opportunities for our career building purposes. So with that intention we generally get into. But the question arises, is it the only intentions, is it the only intention we have to study this subject uh, when you enter into this degree course, and when you complete your first year and second year, and till at least in the final year you come to know that it's not only the purpose of our studying of literature, because something else is there. Of course economical independency is one of the major aspects in our life. Career building is one of the major aspects, because if we are economically independent, and definitely it strengthen us to do something more in our life, and that is the basic requirements undoubtedly. But when it comes to, is it the only thing which gives us the satisfaction? So when we talk about the satisfaction in the life, I remember one of the very famous Irish playwrights of 19th century, GB Shaw, being optional English students, You all might have aware of Irish playwright called GB Shaw, who is one of the very famous playwrights at the time, and even today, the plays of GB Shaw has been discussed, and a lot of research has been done, and even the research has been going on the plays of GB Shaw. So when we look into the biographical sketches of GB Shah, one thing which is very attractive in his life is, and at the very small age, at the very early age, even if he is much more interested in the literature, but because of the financial crisis of his family, it was inevitable for GB Shah to go for the job to bear his economical condition of his family. So what he did, and he went and joined as a clerk in one of the offices, and he started earning, and that becomes a great help for his family, undoubtedly. But whenever he sit at his desk for work as a clerk, and all time one question arises in his mind, that is, I'm not born for this. So this particular question, always haunts him, and it never allows him to have a very sound sleep. And even economically, he's independent and bearing all the burdens of his family, and everything. Rest of the thing is very nice, but when it comes to the satisfaction of the life, so this particular question haunts him all the time. And if I'm not born to be a clerk, and for what reason, what something else is there in my life, and for what reason I'm born, for what purpose I'm born. So he started thinking on that particular question, and he started doing a lot of research on that. So one fine day he came to know that he is not born as a clerk, but he born to be a writer. So when he got this answer, and his mind became very cool and calm, and he got a kind of relief. So then he decides that this is my purpose or the aim in the life, and I born to be a writer. And probably I strongly believe, and even my teachers used to tell us that, and every child born with a purpose when we come on this earth, and definitely we have some purposes for our life. And most of the time what happens, the people who find the answer for their purpose, for their birth, and they become the personalities. The people who fail to understand the purpose for their life, and they remain as only the persons. That is the difference between the personality and person. That's what we generally say. You know, and even GB Shah became the personality because he found the answer for his what is the purpose for his life. So, being optional literature students, and we should find for what purpose we have opted this subject. That is very first and foremost, the aspect, important aspect to be. And as I told you, career development is one of the aspects, that is not the major aspect. And apart from that, there is something else we need to find it out. So we all know that, as optional English students, I need not to talk about the definition, the uh, origin of the world literature and everything, because it has been taught in the classes as a part of the syllabus. But my focus is on, you know, the literature, and why we need to study the literature, because to study the literature we should have the clarity about the major genres of literature. When we talk about the major genres, because when we study drama as one of the genres, so we have the different structure of it. And when it comes to the fiction, it has its own fiction. And when it comes to the poetry, it has its own fiction and non-fiction, as we study the biographies, autobiographies, and realistic memoirs and everything, and they all come under the non-fiction writing. So every genre has its own different kind of structure, and we should aware of all these things. That is the very basic the knowledge as optional students we need to have. And why we should study literature? The question we always need to ask ourselves: why? For what reason? What all the major the reasons are there to study the literature? And I'll just focus three four 4 to 5 points. No, there are many reasons to get into the literature. The very first thing, self reflection. So when I speak about the self reflection, so I can say that Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, and he always tells that, and one should undergo for self examination. When we do the self examination, and we'll come to know that whether we are in the right direction or the wrong direction. So many a time we'll be in a great confusion, and in what path we are moving, whether it is correct or wrong. So always we have the dilemma of choosing the right path. So when we conduct a self examination, and we definitely find a correct route, that's what Gandhi says in his one of the chapters of his autobiographies. And in fact, it also develops our communication skills. It also helps us to improve our communication skills. So you can also find the difference. How can we say that studying literature helps us to develop our communication skills? Because literature is nothing but the reflection of the society, or the mirror of society. So what we do in the society, and the same thing you can find as a mirror of it in the literature. So we all the human is the center uh, figure in the literature. In the surrounding of a human beings, the entire the plot would be constructed. That's what we generally talk about when it comes to the literature. So how can we, how can the literature, studying of literature helps us for the development or the improvement of our communication skills? The one who study the literature and the one who does not study the literature, you can find the difference in their communication skills, in their vocabulary, because the language what we find in these kind of genres, that is what I said, the genres like the drama, fiction, non-fiction, and poetry, that language is very familiar language to us, because that is the language of a human heart. So we find that language in this literature, and which helps us to improve our vocabulary. And the great vocabulary is also kind of a primary base, or the basic tool for the development of our communication. So in this regard, and definitely the literature can help us to improve our communication skills. And another thing we can find that it also connects the individual to the human experiences, right? So many a time we come across uh, you know only studying the stories or the novels, and what are you going to gain? And it's a very common question, who come from generally from the science background or the commerce background. They say that, and you people are going to study only the the stories or the dramas or the novels, and what is the use of it? Because you are not going to invent anything, as the science people they do. But uh, while talking about this particular, while getting into this kind of debate, and what is the use of studying literature? So ultimately, what is the purpose of life? When we raise this question, so I just remember one of the stories, that is of a fisherman story. So in that story, a fisherman who always who has a very small hut on the seashore, and he goes to the ship and catches some of the fishes, and he goes to market and sell them and get some money, and buy the the basic requirements of his family. And in the afternoon he used to sleep very nicely, and in the evening he used to spend a very happy life with his children. And one fine day, a foreigner who visited him, and he had a talk with that fisherman. And you are so lazy that you are only working for 3 4 hours, and if you work hard, if you work more, so definitely you gain some money. And then fisherman asked that, and if I gain some extra money, if I earn some extra money, what is the use of it? And he says that if you earn extra money, so you can buy your own ship. And after buying own ship, what happens? Then he says that you can send them as a on a rent base. And if I do that, and what am I going to gain? And if you do like that, you get more money. And ultimately, this is how the discussion goes on. And at last, the foreigner tells the fisherman that if you do all these things, and one fine day you will be having a bungalow at the seashore, and you can spend the very happy life with your family, with your children. And the fisherman asked him, that question is a very haunting question. And being a literature student, and you should convey to the rest of the people and who leisurely talk about the about the literature and everything, and about the significance of it, that for what exactly the intention of the literature. And probably this story gives us the accurate intention of the literature. And when fisherman asked him, and if I have this bungalow, and what am I going to do if I earn this money and bungalow and everything? How many years of time am I going to have? And around 20 25 years, and you will be having all these facilities for your life. And then fisherman tells that, and after having all this, and what am I going to do? And then he says that you can spend the happy life with your family. Then fisherman tells, and what am I doing right now is the same thing what you are going to talk about after 25 years. So means the purpose of life ultimately to gain the happiness and to have the satisfaction and lead a very peaceful life. So probably the literature helps us to lead such a kind of life, and a happy and delightful, as well as a very peaceful life ultimately. And and I can also remember Francis Bacon essays. So Francis Bacon, we all know that is father of English essays. And one of his essays of studies, so in that he explains the studies serve three main purposes, the purposes of the studies. And he gives the main three purposes, that is, one is delight, and the second one is the ornament, and the third is ability. So being a literature student, and depends on how we want to get into this literature and make our life more beautiful. Then delight is, and I can say that the leisurely time when you have, and especially the age old people after the retirement, and especially the homemakers, and who wants to spend their leisure time, and probably they read some books, and their purpose is only to have the happiness or the delight is the main intention of they are not going to write any exam on that, or they're not going to write any research paper on the the text. What are they going to engage? And their purpose is to just to have happiness. And the second one is ornament. And how can you make the study of literature as the ornament of yours, decorating yourself? Means, and I'm not talking about the physical decoration. I'm talking about your, the smartness, mental smartness. So how will you deliver a talk, and how will you converse, and how will you get into the subject, how will you argue? And based on that, the people judge you whether you have a great knowledge or not. And to gain that knowledge, that knowledge becomes a kind of ornament to you people. So probably literature students, especially the optional English students, is not only the they should have all these purposes. That is, They should have the happiness, the first priority, and second thing, they should make it as an ornament of their to their life and ability. So ultimately, your knowledge help us to lead a better life, practically speaking. So if you want to lead a very better life, and you should have that ability. And ability means what? If you are economically independent, financially very strong, is it the only ability? It's not the only ability. Many times what happens, and in the very early age, and especially in the degree or the first final years or in the PG, when we are going to pursue, and we think of our first priority, if I settle, if I gain any job, and all my the purpose in life are going to be fulfilled. And always this question arises and haunts my mind: is only the financial, the strength is going to be your ultimate strength or ultimate ability? That's the only minute thing, that is only the first step you are going to climb ahead. So the ultimately, economically, socially, psychologically, you should be very independent. So if you fail to take a decision of your own, I know many a time we are economically very strong, independent, that's fine. But when it comes to take up some any decision, so I fail many a time. I fail to take the decision, and many a time I depend on the others to for my decisions. So probably we are not independent in that stages. So if you are economically independent, socially, economically, politically, psychologically, if you are independent, that is what your real ability, and that kind of ability you have to gain. And probably reading of literature can help us to gain that ability, as Francis Bacon tells us. And he also categorizes books based on their values. uh, we have lot of dilemma, that is what kind of books we need to read. Because when you search in Amazon, or if you go for library and search for the books, and innumerable books, thousands together, lakhs together books are available in the market. So if I fail to categorize, and if I fail to find the books which can help us to chew and digest, that is very important. And he categorizes the books based on their values. Some books are to be tasted. And what does it mean, tasted books? And they only give us the information, and simultaneously they give us some kind of pleasure for us, and that purpose is going to be fulfilled. If we select some kind of books only for the sake of getting the informations, and some kind of books which can give us some pleasure for us, and some books are like that to be swallowed. I know swallowed, what exactly Francis Bacon means here is without a deep analysis. So you are not going to, you are just kind of a summary, what we say, if especially in the primary and high school, a poem prescribed for you, or a story prescribed for you. And generally what happens in the rural schools, the teacher used to give us the summary and ask us to mug up everything and omit the same thing in the examination. Generally we do like that. That is what we never go for deep analysis of any aspect of it, and just we are going to superficially read and understand, and just we enjoy it. And some books are like that to be chewed and digested. And here you are going to study in detail about each and every aspect of it. And probably being a optional English students, and you should select some of the books, and which you can chew and digest it. The relevancy of the books, and some books outdated, what we say. So probably some books they were written in the 16th and 17th century, and even some many writers would be there probably, but we remember only a few writers. What makes us to read those literature even in the 21st century, even they were written in 16th and 17th century, but we read all the literature of 16th and 17th century, 18th century, even in 21st century. What exactly the reasons for it? And I'm going to focus on those aspects when I talk about the functions of literature. Okay, so what all the functions of literature? So reflection of society, as I told you, literature is nothing but it is a reflection of society. So exploration of human nature and catalyst for imagination, cultural prevention and exchange, and even emotional and intellectual engagement. So these are some of the the functions what literature does for us. So when I talk about reflection of society, so every, as I told you, some text or the books which were written in 16th or 17th or 18th century, even they are very relevant to talk, and even they are very relevant to do the research on those text or the books, and what makes us to read them again and again. So some, we should have some clarity in which era that particular literature or the text has been written. So I can remember one of my experiences when I was reading Taladanda play written by Girish Karnad. So when I was reading that play, probably I was in a PU, which was I was reading it in Kannada, and later, of course, I studied it in translation in English. When I was reading this play in my PU, and then I raised the question to my teacher that, and you can see that in that play intercaste marriage, one of the scenes had appear Kalavati, and who is a Brahmin girl, and Sheelavanta and a cobbler boy, marriage took place. And my question to my teacher at the time were, I had two questions and which were haunting me at the time. And Kalavati and this Sheelavanta, they were not matured enough. Means, as we say that 18th and 21st, 21 years, and now the years also has been changed, and they upgraded the years as well. Even Kalavati was not, she is a child, and even Sheelavanta is not up to age to for the marriage. And my I had this question which came to my mind, and directly I asked my teacher that why even they are not matured enough for the marriage, why Basavanna permitted for the marriage. That was my question. And even I was closely reading the dialogues, and in that particular scene, Sheelavanta was asked whether he is ready for the marriage or not. But Kalavati was not asked. So why this difference, sir? That is what the patriarchal system. You asked, the playwright asked, make Shilavanta to be asked, and Kalavati was not given the chance to tell her opinion or the whether she's ready or not for the marriage. And I had these questions, and probably I was so innocent at the time to raise these questions. And my teacher told me that, and you should not read this play in the context of 21st century, because during the time, the 12th century, and there were no constitution at all, and there was no any kind of barriers of the age for the marriage, and that you have to look into and get into this particular scene. And he suggested me like that, and slowly when I became a teacher I understood. And okay, we should have the knowledge of history, that is very important. Being optional students, I suggest you at least you should have a brief knowledge or the clear cut knowledge about the history of any literature. History means socio-economical condition of that particular era, and probably that knowledge helps us to understand the text, in that context, understand it properly and digest it well. And unless we have the knowledge of the history, and if you study that particular text keeping yourself into the 20th, of course, there are many dimensions to be discussed, and simultaneously for the first base or the priority, and you should have the knowledge of that particular era in that context. And probably there is a relevancy of it, and that's what my teacher told, and even I slowly convinced by it. And that that is what I said, reflection of society, of any society. And even I can give one of the examples of a story called Weed. Actually it is written by a Punjabi writer. Originally it is in Punjabi, and later it has been translated into English. And the writer actually is Amarjit Kaur, but told that Amrit Preetham is the writer. um, but my intention is, you know in that story Weed, Anguri is the character, and I feel she is the protagonist of that story. So I just don't want to talk about the entire story of the Weed here, and I just focus on how this particular story is about the Banzara community. So in that Banzara community, and especially during the time when the story was written, and how the women were suppressed, uh, how they were denied for to gain the education, or to deny to um, educate, especially formal education was denied for the girls at that time. And my focus is on the Banzara community, and especially during that time, and how uh, through some kind of superstitions, rites and rituals, and how women were suppressed, especially in the Indian families, where we have the patriarchal system where the men is dominating. So especially in such cases, through the rites rituals, and they educate the girl child from the beginning that these are all the things are denied to you. And they also quote some of the examples, some of the very strong reasons for that also. And Anguri and Amrita Preetham, and who is the writer, and she was sitting beneath a banyan neem tree, probably neem tree, and she was writing something. And this Anguri went to her, and slowly she sat beside to her, and slowly Amrit Preetham spoke to this Anguri, and she asked her whether would you like to read this book. Amrita Preetham had given a book and asked her, would you like to read? And immediate response from this girl is, no, 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 I don't want to read, Didi. And this is the reaction from this Anguri. And why you don't want to read the text? And she says that uh, reading is prohibited. Reading is a kind of sin for us. Don't want to read because it is a sin. If I read, if I write, and I'm going to do a sin, so I don't want to do sin and go to hell. That is what she explains. And this particular context helps us to know that how in this particular community, uh, I'm not focusing only on this community. I'm just focusing only because the story is about that particular Banzara community, and where these girls were denied for the formal education, and how they were suppressed, and how they were denied in the name of superstition and everything. And probably these kind of interpretation helps us to know that how the entire society literature can be a mirror to the society in that sense. And Also, I can remember one of the other stories, uh, the child written by Munshi Premchand. So there you also can find also Indian society, a Brahmin who was working as a servant under a landlord. See that the hierarchy, how it was maintained, caste system, how it was maintained. And simultaneously you can also find that ultimately what matters, the humanity matters. And probably these are all some of the aspects you can find out in the story the child. And even the doll's house, of course, one of my very famous plays. um, it is written by Henry Gibson. uh, Nora is the central character and her husband Harold. And Nora is a kind of woman, and she was a very loving child to her parents and even to her brothers and sisters. And later she shifted to, after the marriage she shifted to her adult's home, and she became very very lovely wife to Harold, taking care of the entire family and children. It was a very happy family, and having lot of satisfaction in that. And due to some reasons, a great disturbance occurs there. I don't want to discuss the entire play. If you are very curious, then just go through the play. And at last scene in this play, you can find that how Nora stands um herself and tries to educate herself. And this is what she had a very big conversation with her husband. Harold, I want to talk to you. And this is what, the first statement of her, and which you can see a kind of drastic change in the entire play. And she wants to educate herself, and I want to have my own space in this world, and I want to educate myself. And these kind of expressions, you can see that a kind of radical change in the society. And of course this play was burnt because it was going to arise a kind of controversies in the family. It was going to disturb the families even then. And probably in Kannada there's a movie called Meera Madhava Raghava, enacted by Ramya. And probably the script writer had studied this play Doll's House, and he found some important aspects of it, and he tried to bring in that movie Meera Madhava Raghava. If you watch that movie, and you can find the kind of reflection of this play Doll's House in that. So even um so these are all some even cultural preservation and exchange. And when we talk about the preservation of our culture, so let us talk about not about the other culture, other the traditions of the other countries, and let us talk about the culture and tradition of our India, that is our nation. So Ramayana and Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, the epics and holy books for us. So one thing we should remember, we should not read these kind of holy books as the representative of one religion or something. And we should read them as the epics or text or the holy books which can educate us to lead a better life. So in that sense, if we study these kind of holy books, and definitely it helps us to mold our personality, it helps us to lead the better life. So so I remember one of the very important the writers, H.S. Shivaprakash sir. And we all know that he's a Kannada writer and a critic. And once when we had a talk of sir on Macbeth, Shakespeare's play, and he mentioned he made a statement like the characters of Shakespeare in all the plays or not with all the characters. So this is what his statement. And he then continues, they are not the characters, but they are the human nature of human beings. So if you read any play of Shakespeare, you can find the reflection of the nature, each and every nature of a human, different kind of nature of a human beings. And probably the classical texts, any classical writings or any holy books, and they do serve the same purpose. They are, we should not read them as only the text, and we should read them as the reflection of the human nature. So even as Hamlet, that is one of the very significant plays of Shakespeare's. uh, in Hamlet, probably in the second act of the second scene, and when he had a conversation with Polonius, and Polonius came and asked him, because Hamlet was in his studies and he was reading book, and he raised this question, what do you read, my lord? And then Hamlet uh, reply to him, words, 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 words. So that's the only reply of Hamlet. What do we mean by this, words, 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 words? What exactly the interpretation of this particular dialogue of Hamlet? The two important, one of the very significant dialogues of Hamlet it is, because my teacher used to tell us that only the words, 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 words. So at that time we were not understanding, he used to tell us that any student can do their PhD or research on this, only this particular dialogue, words, 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 words. How this particular, the dialogue, words, words, words of Hamlet can be a kind of very significant topics, one of the significant topics for the research. Words can be written, but until and unless the words can bring into the action, and they only remain as the words. And if you not bring those words into action, well, let me clear with certain example. uh, Suppose you have promised to your friend, and definitely in his critical situation, and you definitely go and help them, either in case of the financial issues or in case of any moral support or something. So as you promised, a situation has occurred, and your friend called you and pleaded you that you should come forward to help him or her. So if you did not go, if you fail to fulfill your promise, and your promise remains as only the words, and your promise cannot be fulfilled, and that is what exactly the interpretation, a very simple interpretation of this dialogue. Until unless you bring the things into action, they only remain the words. So being a students, because here the students who are having big dreams in the life, many a time in our diary we used to write, I want to become like this, I want to become, we have many big goals for our life. Unless we get into the action to fulfill our dreams, our dream becomes only the dream, it never come into the reality. And only you are going to write the words, and you are not going to give the meaning to your words. So what you need to do, if you fix a goal, and you should make sure that you start working upon that, and you should start working on your goal, and you should start working, simultaneously. You should find out what all the difficulties I can come across, what all the hurdles I can come across into in the journey of mine. So unless and until you know the hurdles, and you never come to know uh, the exact route of yours. And that is what literature also serves many things for us. And even Somerset mom also one of course my one of my favorite writers. And in one of his books, Making of a Saint, and even Summing Up, and he talks about how should be a writer, and what all the aims of the writers. So in detail, he discusses about all these aspects in his the in his text called Summing Up, and which is very significant books. I suggest, because here, as Krishna sir told me, that optional English students, literature students are here, and many of you might be writers, either it is in your mother tongue or in other languages, in the second language. And if you are very serious about to be a writer, and I suggest you should read Summing Up of Somerset Maugham, and which can help us, or which can guide us, what all the intentions of the, what the goals of the writers, and you know how should be a writer, and what all the purposes of his, and to know all these things. And if you are very serious about your rating career, and you should read some books as the prior knowledge, or the basic knowledge point of view, I can say. So there are another aspect which asked to me to discuss is close reading techniques. So there are so many text techniques to read, and read the text multiple times. That is very important, as I told you regarding Taladanda, when I was reading Taladanda when I was in PU, my interpretation of that play was quite different. When I read the same play in my PG, and my interpretation was quite different. And if I read the play multiple times, then probably my interpretation had been changed. So in what perceptions, in what angle you want to read, and you have to focus whether you can find those kind of the um, scenes over there or not, and that you need to take care of. And annotation is also very important, mm, one probably one of my neighbors, actually he's a retired ranger officer, but he used to read many books, and probably he read all the major Kannada writers books, and he maintained a library in his home. And if you get any book from his collection, and you can find that there are so many underlines, and so many notes, and the entire book is covered with some important notes and everything. And probably that kind of habit we need to develop. And of course nowadays we have many soft as digital tools for this purpose. So simultaneously we should have the habit of making notes properly. Annotation is very important thing we need to know. And analyze the language, what kind of language. For example, as I told you, superficial reading is one thing, and deep analysis is another thing. When you read a text initially, your purpose is just to have the happiness or the delight. In that intention only, how to read, and leave these theories or the isms, and you just enjoy the content or the story and the plot, in what plot or the story has been developed in that. So that is your first reading. And after your first reading, and you go for the second reading with certain the important the questions. What is my purpose to read this text? That is very important, being literature students. So without any purpose, as I told you in the first reading, that is fine. And but because you are not on a basic students, you're not going to read the text only for the delightful purpose of the to gain the happiness. Your purpose is something else, something more. So if you have that purpose, and you should have some purpose for the reading, and you should have some questions before you get into the text in the second reading. And for what purpose am I going to read this text? So as I told you, whether you are studying this text from the feministic point of view, and you should make um, sure whether you are talking about the colonial or post-colonial perspectives you are going to study, or in the formalisms, any, the theory, what theory are you going to implement in that particular text, and you should have some clarity, so that you can, your purpose will be served. Otherwise what happens, entire story, you know the entire story, but when you talk about a particular purposes, purposeless reading should not happen, being a very serious student of literature. And as I told you, for example, when it comes to read story, you can read this particular story from the feministic point of view, and even from the communal, the a community you can study, and even caste system also you can study, economical, socio-economical condition during that era you can also study. So you should have some purpose for your reading, so that you start analyzing it properly. So one of the plays of Shakespeare, that is in Macbeth, word blood, as I told you, analyze of the language. So how we need to analyze language, each and every word very significant. Some of the words are very central words. If you catch those words, and probably you get the entire gist of it, what is the purpose of the writer, you are going to get it. So in the Macbeth play, a word called blood, you know in the conversation you can see that I use the Arabian perfumes, the very costly perfumes, and still I can smell the blood of Duncan. And this is the expression of Lady Macbeth in that play. And this blood itself is not, if you read superficially, you can find the very simple meaning for it. But as I told you, you should read between the lines, and you should cultivate the habit of reading between the lines. So if you start decoding the words, and you find something else, some significant aspects of it. So in the word blood itself tells about the guilty, and it tells about the, the what the wrong deeds this Macbeth and Lady Macbeth had done, and how they cheated, Duncan. And these are all the interpretations you can find out when you decode the word blood. So these are all, this is how, I'm just giving one or two examples, only because of the time constraint. So probably these kind of my interpretation with certain examples of some text can help you to read your text which are prescribed for your syllabus. Probably they help us to, they help you to interpret the different text, and get into the text into the different angles. Probably that can also help you. And what, no the when it comes to the comprehensions, and we should have some strategies. So these, the comprehension strategies are very essential tools for understanding and interpreting text effectively, building vocabulary which can help us to, vocabulary building is very important, because until and unless we have the very good vocabulary with us, and it is quite challenging to understand the entire text and pre-reading during the pre-reading time, how can we build the vocabulary, because it's quite challenging for the rural students. Because being a rural a student myself can understand better what all the difficulties of the rural students to getting into the text that to written in the second language English. uh, so what we need to do is we should develop a kind of passion for the literature. Unless we have the passion to learn, unless we have the great, the zeal to learn, and probably we never learn anything. So if with the passion, if you start reading, and if you find any difficult words, and you should find out the meaning for it. And many time, especially reading Shakespeare is very challenging job, because we all know that he's a notorious lawbreaker, and he called as a notorious lawbreaker, and he used to coin new words. And if you want to read Shakespeare and understand by yourself with the help of the dictionary, to know the meaning of his words, probably it's highly impossible. And even I tried and I failed, unless you get the guidance of your teachers, and probably you never understand Shakespeare. And that is what, the contextual reading can help us in some or the other point of view. But some words, if you find any new word, and you should make of your own. When we were in the primary school, so teachers used to tell us, by giving some words to us, form the sentences of your own. Probably that helps us. Uh, uh, that helps us to know more about. That helps us to improve our vocabulary. If you make the sentences of your own, and definitely you can remember those words. Otherwise, it's not possible. And even pre-reading, as I told you, I was talking about the annotations regarding that time, during that time, and I was saying that pre-reading means what? And you should have some intention for your reading, because you are not reading any text purposelessly, and you should have some purpose, some intentions to read, some questions, and you should have in your mind before you get into the text, so that you can enjoy the text, and you can get something more in that. And during your reading, what you need to do, and you should annotation, as I told, annotate, make some points and notes, and that also can help you. And after reading, and what the question you had at the beginning, and probably your questions might have changed, or probably you have some other new questions in your mind, whether you try to answer to those questions. So that can also help us to, these are all some of the techniques, uh, the for the purpose of close reading techniques, I can say. uh, Annotation and note taking is one of the other the topics which were asked me to cover. So these are the very essential skills, undoubtedly, for your effective learning. What exactly the purpose served by annotation is to highlight the very key ideas and important details in the text, and to clarify any confusions, sections, and unfamiliar terms, and to make connection to other text or personal experiences. And to, when you intertextual method, like what we say, when you start reading one text, and it may make you to remember the other text, or some, the incident what you had in your personal life, the some personal experiences also can help us to, connect with the text and remember that. So even if you find some kind of the other text, which can help you to remember this one, that also you can make a note of it, and engage critically by questioning or evaluating the content. Means uh, without the questions, question need to be asked, either to the others, at least to yourself. So unless we have the question for ourselves, and probably um, the we never be a very kind of serious kind of literature students. If we want to become a very serious kind of literature students, and you need to have some questions in your mind before you get into any text, and note taking, which can help us to summarize the information, and also help us to recall the important details and prepare for the discussions, examination, and research projects. So whatever you read and practice, and nowadays probably I don't know whether it is the impact of the the COVID or what. After COVID, when we much well versed with the technology, and probably the students stopped writing, you know unless they write. Francis Bacon, in the study of studies, writing maketh a perfect man, he says. How can the writing make a perfect man? And if you write, if you read, you remember a little. If you write, you remember everything, and that is what the interpretation of it. So writing, how can it help us? I would just in between the lines I was reading and trying to understand and how the writing can help us, you know our memory power. And in meditation they say that if you are losing your memory power and you do the meditation, meditation can help us to improve our memory power. So how these kind of writing skills and the habit of writing more and more help us to improve our memory power, because in meditation what they say, and they generally say us to concentrate on one object and focus on one object, and without blinking your eyes, and you just look at that object for a few minutes. So if you practice every day in such a way, and definitely it helps to improve your memory power. So when you start writing, you just be a keen observer of yourself first. So when you start writing and you just focus on the paper line and your nib of a pen, so the very concentration, and simultaneously in the process of writing, and you are doing the biggest meditation, and that meditation definitely helps us to improve our memory power. So I prefer my students, all the students, to get into more and more in the writing. So definitely these kind of the practices helps us to improve our knowledge of vocabulary, and it also helps us to improve our analytical skills, and how can we analyze the text and everything. So I should quote one thing, that is so this is the book, Patravali is the it's a collection of letters written by my guru, that is Basuraj Donu sir. So in this you can find around 300 letters. I know he had written to his teacher, and even what the letters he received from his guru, GB Sajjan. Of course, he is called as a very linguist. Now he is no more. Um he is a he was a professor of English, and died person. And when of course, GB Sajjan sir is not a classroom teacher for Donu sir, but when they met in one of the functions, and from that day a conversation began, and that too in the letter form. And he was in a Bijapur, that GB Sajjan, and sir is in Dharwad. They used to exchange the letters. So in one of all the letters, I probably don't say that they are only the very personal letters, but when I read all the letters in this book, I found that probably this is one of the biggest assets for the students. And who are the serious students of literature, probably one must read some, at least some of the letters of GB Sajjan sir. And in this, in a very first letter when he received from Donu sir, and he had written uh, as a reply to one of the articles which he posted. And after that, I don't want to read the entire content of it. It is in the Kannada. Uh, so in the last paragraph, he used to write. Uh, I just read the exact, the lines which were written here. Uh, ನೀವು ಗೊತ್ತು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕಾದ ಎರಡು ಪ್ರಾಥಮಿಕ ಅಂಶಗಳೆಂದರೆ ಬರಹದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾರ್ಜಿನ್ ಬಿಡುವುದು, ಎರಡನೆಯದು ಎಂದರೆ ಕವರ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಬರೆಯೋದು ತೀರಾ ತಲೆಯ ಮೇಲಲ್ಲ. ಸಾಧಾರಣವಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಲೈನ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ, ಒಂದು ಲೈನ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚು, ಕವರಿನ ಅಗಲಳತೆಯ ಮಧ್ಯಭಾಗದ ಸುಮಾರಿಗೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಸ್ಟೈಲ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದನ್ನು ನನ್ನ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ ಪಾಲಿಸೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವರಿಗೂ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೇನೆ, ಶಾಲೆಯಲ್ಲಂತೂ ಹೇಳಿಕೊಡೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೂ ಹೀಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ends his letter. Probably these kind of very minor things, many time we neglect. It doesn't mean that teachers never focus on these aspects, but many time we used to tell, especially we need to thankful to all the primary school teachers, because they, you know, uh, they teach us every aspect of it. And many time when we were in the primary schools, we used to, if anything is asked to write, and generally what we do, we, you know do the leave the margins and start writing as the guidance of the teachers. But when we grow up, we stop practicing all these beautiful things in our writing. Probably GB Sajjan, as a linguist, he never digest these kind of even the minor things, and these kind of things are very significant, as he told. And in one of his other letters, just read out and wind up with my first, the session. uh, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಟ್ರಲಿ he says, uh, ಒಂದು ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸಿದ್ದು ನನಗೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್, ನಾವು ಅಭ್ಯಸಿಸುವಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಮೊದಲ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಯ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಕಡೆ. ಏಕೆಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಮೊದಲಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಆಗದೆ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಆಗಬಲ್ಲೆವು? ಐ ರಿಪೀಟ್, ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಆಗದೇನೆ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಆಗಬಲ್ಲೆವು? The intention of GB Shah, Sajjan sir here is, uh, being literature students, you need not to, your intention should not be only the content or the plot construction or to know the gist of it. And simultaneously, you should be very cautious about the language. So all the punctuation marks and everything, many time we regret because we fail to use the punctuation marks properly. So that should not happen. So because there is a difference between the oral communication and written communication. When it comes to the written communication, and you should follow all the grammatical rules and regulations. That's what probably in all the letters of GB Sajjan sir, and we come across such a kind of suggestions um, to sir, and which can also a kind of suggestion to, it becomes a, even these letters are very personal letters, a kind of conversation between two. But the text now can be a universal, because uh, the conversation what happened here is not only the conversation in a very personal mode, personal mode has been crossed, and now it is a universal one, because it can be a kind of guide many time, I feel. So with these kind of, the words, I can conclude with the first session. Probably I can, I reached to you properly. I tried my level best to convince you what the knowledge I have. I tried to extend the things what I have in my mind, uh, keeping myself focusing on the the topics which are given to me. So with this, I can conclude with the first session. If you have any questions to be raised, you can.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful session. It was indeed insightful and thought provoking. We will now open the floor for questions and discussions. Participant, you are welcome to unmute yourself one by one or post your questions in the chat box. Let us must make this session as interactive as possible. Please unmute yourselves and ask your questions.
Hello, Vitti. I think the ma'am has clarified everything. She covered everything. So, yes, some of the students posted the question
Yes.
in the chat box.
Uh, there is a
Ma'am, can you able to read that?
Yeah, Prashant, there's a question by Prashant Maitri. I think he's one of the students of yours. Can literature change our life? If yes, then how, madam? Ma'am, how does annotation helps in close reading? Uh, so I think I spoke on these questions. Let me clarify again to you. Can literature change our life? If yes, definitely I say yes, because being a literature student, I still call myself as a student of literature, because there is no end for learning, undoubtedly. So being a literature student, and definitely it helps us to mold our entire life in a great extent, because as I told you, and you get some strength for your life. So as I told you, only the career development is not the priority. There are so many other aspects to, if you want to lead a better life, economical condition is not the only thing which can help us to lead the better life. And there are there's so many things. That one thing is, many a time I even found many people, and even they are in a very good position in their profession, but they fail to take the right decision. Why it happens? So because they are not much more exposed to the society, because society is having two phases. That is, one is virtue and vice. So we cannot get the experiences of everything in our life, because life is very little for us. So everything we by our own, as we all know that experience is the best teacher, right? So when experience is the best teacher, so we cannot have the experiences of all type of experiences in our own life. Probably the literature, when you study the literature, definitely, if you study a story, or if you study a novel, if you study a play, as I told you, literature is nothing but it's a reflection of the society. And the characters what you come across, they are not the characters at all, they are the reflection of the human nature. And let me tell you one the aspect of it. That is, if you read the play The Tempest, written by William Shakespeare. So as I told you, Shakespeare's plays, even they are very relevant to be discussed and read even today. Why Shakespeare is called as the greatest playwright? What makes him to be the greatest playwright in across the world? So in The Tempest, Raspero is the, I don't call him as a protagonist, because all the characters, in one or the other sense, they are the protagonists, undoubtedly. And Prospero, even he always gets into the study, and he's Duke of Milan. Okay, he's a Duke of Milan. He's a supreme of that Milan. and but the problem with the Prospero is much more interested in gaining the knowledge, always gets into his study room and read the books and gain the knowledge. And he's very much interested in the magic and liberal arts and everything. And what he did, and he completely handed over the administration in the hands of his younger brother Antonio. What Antonio did, so he took the entire charge of the administration. He started looking after the administration, and however he wishes, that's how he started doing the administration. And especially the officers who can listen to him, and he used to promote them, and who denies to listen to him, he used to remove them and replace with the other people. So, in this particular context, of course, there is a colonialism, that is the different part of the story. Just why am I saying this? Particularly, in what sense you can read, in what way you can read this particular context? Because the plays were written in it was written probably in a 16 not 5 or 16th sorry 1560 or something. I did not remember accurate uh, age in accurate year in what this play it is written. But during 16th and 17th century, that was the time of rule of kings and queens. But how can we study this the context in the present scenario? So Prospero, as I told you, is very good at heart, and he is very humble, and he is very the generous person. And he always treat his subjects as with great respect, and that is fine. But what is his primary duty? What is his primary intention? That is being a duke, and he has to look after the administration on his own. But he did not do this. And because of the negligency of this Prospero, and probably the entire system suffers, entire dukedom, that is Milan, suffers. So if you bring this particular play in the present context, and many a time we say that if you visit any officers or any offices, and we say that the officer is too good, but he is unfit to be a administrator because he is least bothered for the administration. So then the question arises, what is the use of it? Because once we fail to do our duties properly, and definitely, and that makes the entire system to be suffered. So what exactly this reading of these kind of things can help us? And as Maitri Prashant asked me that how can it change our life? And definitely it can change our life, and to know what all the our major what all our primary duties and how we need to fulfill them. So because I cannot be officer of all of a sudden. So if I have the prior knowledge of these kind of text, and I can never repeat the mistakes uh, as in the context of Prospero has done, probably I stop doing all these kind of mistakes. I can avoid these kind of mistakes, unnecessary mistakes in my life. Probably in these kind of things can help us to improve our life, mold our life, and definitely it can help us to change our life in a positive sense. And of course, as I told you, literature is nothing but the reflection of the society. There is a vice and virtue, and even if you what in what angle you look into the life, that is what you can get it. So even in the literature you can find the vice and virtue. If you find the virtue, and you can become a better human being. If you follow the vice, and it can take you to the wrong direction, and you are going to spoil your own life. So probably mm, I reached you, and I answered to your question. And Sangmesh Rajmani, ma'am, how does annotation helps in close reading? And definitely, annotation is nothing but making the points, you know, uh, if you make the notes, in the first reading, as I told you, in the first reading, if you make some notes, and in the second reading, if you go with the same notes, and that kind of annotations, making of for some points here and there, and underlining and reading between the lines, and these kind of the notes can help us for our close reading, undoubtedly. Why you mentioned Shakespeare's works are the most difficult to understand? Babu Dolly, why you mentioned the Shakespeare's plays works are most difficult to understand? So in the sense, what I said is, when it comes to the language, as I told you, Shakespeare is the notorious lawbreaker, and all the Shakespeare's plays were written in a old English. That's one thing. And second thing, as I told you, he himself coined so many words. So unless you have the better guidance from the teachers, probably original reading the original text of Shakespeare. I told you, in the sense of the language point of view, not any rest of the things. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for the engaging discussion. Ma'am, shall we take a small break or shall continue the second session?
Uh, as you people say, shall we have another 3-4 minutes break, and let us come back, or else?
Okay. Okay, ma'am, we'll take 5 minutes break and start the second session.
Okay.
Her valuable time, knowledge, and expertise with us today. Your insights into literature and the use of digital tools have been truly enlightening and will undoubtedly inspire us in our academic endeavors. I would also like to thank our respected principal, Dr. B.S. Kamble, sir, for his continuous support and encouragement. In organizing such programs, your inspiring words and vision always guide us toward academic and personal growth. My sincere thanks go to the Department of English faculty members Sri Imran Mullah sir, Sri Krishnakant Patil sir and Sri M.M. Sutar sir for their valuable contributions and guidance in making the program a success. Your effort and dedication are deeply appreciated. A special thanks to all the faculty members, technical support team, and students, volunteers who worked tirelessly behind the screens to ensure the smooth conduction today's program. Last but not least, my heartfelt appreciation goes to all the participants for your active enrollment and enthusiasm. Your engagement made this event meaningful and successful. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Have a great day.
Thank you, Prashant, for the heartfelt vote of thanks. With this, we officially conclude today's capacity building program. We extend our gratitude to our esteemed guest, Ms. Vijayalakshmi Danaraddi, for sharing her knowledge and insight, and to all the participants for their enthusiastic involvement. Have a great day ahead, and we hope to see you all again. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant and Kamble sir, and all of you, and the students over here, bearing me with almost 2 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
accepting our invitation, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you,
It was a
Prashant.
great experience of learning from you, ma'am. I hope our students gained a significant benefit from this lecture. And then probably next time we plan to conduct an offline session so that our students can witness and engage with the session directly, ma'am. Please, you should
Thank you.
accept our invitation to come to our seminar.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Krishna.